Check, 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 check. Morning, morning, morning. Happy April 2nd. Good news is April Fool's Day is over, so we not going to have to worry about those jokes anymore about certain players or whatever or fake news, just to play April Fools going down. So that's good, but we'll give it another minute or so. Then we're going to start this discussion. What I'm going to be doing for this one, I'm just going to go through a list of all the Hall of Famers. All the people that are inducted in the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame and give you my yes or no answer. Now, some of these early people, class of 1959, I have no idea who some of these people are, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of research on these ones. But yeah, stay tuned. This should be a fun discussion. So, without any further ado, let's see. Who's Oswald Tower, contributor? Okay, 50-year member of the Hall of Fame, played a center role in the development, the first half of the century. The game lacks standardized rules. Okay, that's just a bunch of fluff. Fishing both high school football and basketball for 35 years. Okay, so this is more of a let me see. Years as official rules interpreter. Okay, so he's more of a behind-the-scenes guy that helped get everything together. Okay, so he's got inducted in their Hall of Fame for playing a significant role in a lot of the behind-the-scenes aspects. Probably a lot of these early guys that go in. So I can't really judge that yes or no. Some of these early ones are just going to be mostly like people that help popularize the game or helped, market it, probably for the most part. So let's see. The next one, Amos Alonzo Stagg. Okay, basketball roots go back. All right, where's some info? Let me see. Okay, coach the football team. All right, that's not really Coach Hall of Famer Harlan Pat Page. Oh, here we go. He popularized the practice of five-man basketball. Okay, so he was just another one of those figures that helped get the game started and revolutionized. Okay, I guess that makes sense. John Schomer, let's see what he was up to. See if this guy is actually a player. Okay, college. He played this guy, John Schomer, played Chicago, 4-time All-American, 3-time All-Western, 1-time national player, 3 national championships, 12 varsity letters. Okay, so a lot of these guys were just early on. This was before the NBA was really that popular. So it's just, by today's basketball standards, a lot of these guys didn't really age as well as Hall of Famers. So these are just mostly, okay, but you do, and you have, so a lot of these guys are mostly like contributors. You see Chuck Taylor, Claire B., Howard Keene, Amaury Gill, Dougie Julian. These guys were mostly just contributors. So it's hard to really judge a lot of these guys from the early years because most of these, as far as yes or no for Hall of Famers, because they were just inducting contributors who helped make the game more popular. So a lot of these, by today's standards, with all due respect, they don't fit the modern standard for being inducted in the Basketball Hall of Fame, so to say. But let's see. Dutch Deer Hernert. Let's see who this is. Find out a little info about this guy. 4-time ABL champion, NBL national titles coach, team's original Celtics, Trenton Tigers. So these guys, obviously, as you can tell, this was long before the NBA came what it is. The Basketball Hall of Fame was way different. So I'm going to try to, maybe I'll skip ahead some of these early inductees. We'll go to let's see. We'll see through the 70s. You have Wilt Chamberlain, of course. That's a no-brainer. Yes, one of the best players of his era. Players, you got Cliff Hagan. Let's see who some of these players were. Oh, Elgin Baylor. You remember he was part of those Lakers teams in the early Lakers years before Bird and Johnson popularized the game. He was enshrined in 77. I even once put Elgin Baylor as an honorable mention for best Lakers of all time. It says Baylor's innovator offensive force, 6'5", possessed tremendous body control. All right, you got to give me some more info than that, though. He's the first player to break the 70-point barrier when he torched the Knicks for 71. Also teamed with Jerry West, one of those early formidable scoring duos. So for that, yeah, I'll say Elgin Baylor definitely belonged alongside Jerry West. These guys were early contributors. Like you got, let's see, who else do we got? Yeah, Bill Russell, definitely. He dominated the game, won the most rings of any player. Now, granted, to be fair, hey, that does have the asterisk of Bill Russell won all those rings during a less competitive era, but he still won a ton of rings and was one of the most dominant players and really was ahead of his time as a player. So, yeah, Bill Russell, absolutely a Hall of Famer. Let's see, Fuzzy Vanderveer. Let's see who this is. See. You see, 3-time state champion, all Midwest, all high school state. So this guy was more of a star high school player before the NBA really became that popular. So you get John Wooden. It's like a lot of those early players don't match modern Hall of Fame standards. They just got inducted because they were very popular and dominant in an era before the NBA really became popular. Like that's a trend I'm noticing with a lot of these early Hall of Famers that I look into them. I'm probably going to just skip ahead to the 80s Hall of Famers because it's really the standard. It's hard to judge because these standards were way different before my time. It's like, but I will say this, Bill Russell, definitely. Elgin Baylor, yes, because Bill Russell particularly, his dominance still holds up to this day, and he was playing ahead of his time. Same with Wilt Chamberlain. He was another guy who, playing-wise, was ahead of his time. He would have been competitive in any era that came after him. So to those two guys, Chamberlain and Russell, yes. Jerry West, too. He's a guy that could have been competitive in the later years. So yes to Jerry West now. Oh, yeah, Big O, Oscar Robertson, the original triple-double man before that became a term. Absolutely one of the greatest. Some consider him the greatest, if not top 5 greatest point guards of all time. Oscar Robertson, definitely. Jerry Lucas, I know he was another name from that early era that was guys like Robertson, Lucas, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, these guys really were playing ahead of their time. So, yeah, I consider these guys dominant. During 11 NBA seasons with Cincinnati, San Fran, New York, Lucas was a 3-time All-NBA selection, named to 7 All-Stars, and was the MVP of the 65 All-Star game. He won Rookie of the Year. He was traded from San Fran to New York, which helped orchestrate the Knicks' 1973 NBA championship. I mean, yeah, this guy, yeah, one of the best of his era. Yeah, definitely got to be a Hall of Famer. And you see also an Olympic gold medalist. Remind you, this was back in 1960. This was before the whole dream team became the norm, too. So that's Dan. Hold on a second. What the hell? Yo, come on. All right, man. Let's see who else. You got Oscar Robertson, Jerry Lucas. Who was Everett Shelton? Let's see who this was. I need a little more info on him to get an idea of whether yay or nay on that. Let's see. And this was as a coach, so let's see. AAU National Team, 1943 NCAA Championship, University of Wyoming, 8-time tournaments, 19 seasons as a coach, 8-time Skyline Championship. Yep, I can see that, especially in that era. Then trying to get back to somewhere along the 80s. Let's keep that. I don't know. Maybe I might be able to share. Maybe I can find a different one because this thing's bouncing all over the place. I'm going to share a different screen with you guys because this one's, well, it's got the list. It doesn't include, it bounces all over the place. So let me see if I can find this from a different website. All right, this one's actually a little bit better. I'm doing it from NBA.com. So I'm going to scroll down to about the 1980s onward because that'll be, all right, here we go. I'm going to reshare the screen with you guys. Give me 1 second. Hey, Grego, what's up? What's up? All right, here we go. This should probably do better. All right, so here we go. I got 1980, Oscar Robertson. We said yes. Jerry West, Jerry Lucas, yes. Lee Harrison, contributor. I mean, contributor-wise, it's like, I mean, I guess, yes, you got Everett Sheldon. I think we just went through him, so yeah. And let's see, let's go 81 drift, 81 inductees. You got Thomas Barlow. I'm going to have to, not really, I'll have to do some search on Thomas Barlow, see who he is. Because he wasn't, let's see who Thomas Barlow was. He played for the ABL. All right, so this was a throwback who was I guess, yeah, say a throwback who was a product of his time. So it's kind of hard to judge yay or nay on that. You got Arid McCutcheon, who, like some of these contributors, you got to remember, a lot of these were guys that were contributors for their time before the modern era. Mostly the modern era is Bird Johnson onward. So you got to also, when I research these guys, look at what they accomplished in their time. Now, for Arid McCutcheon, 5 championships as a college coach, 1959, 1960, 64, 65, 71. All right, fair enough. That makes sense. Now, skip it. 82, Willis Reed. Yes, I've said that Willis is one of the greatest Knick players of all time. That's a yes. You got Frank Ramsey. Let's see. Let's skip ahead. You got Hal Greer. He was one of those early players in the Sixers. I think going back to when they were the Syracuse Nationals. So to give him nods. Frank Ramsey, he played for the Celtics for his playing career. He was part of those 7 championships, had number 23 retired. But he didn't have any all-star or award nods, so I guess he was a contributor to those Bill Russell teams. I guess back at the time, I'll say it seems like Frank Ramsey was a guy who was more suited for Hall of Fame for his time, but doesn't really stand up as well by today's era. Now you got Slater Martin, 5-time NBA champion, 7-time All-Star, number 22 retired by the Lakers. This one I'll have to say yes to, because that indicates he's one of the best of his era. Hal Greer, yes. See, 1983, you got Bill Bradley. I'm familiar. I know the name Bill Bradley. I'm familiar with that name. Let's see who. Let's see, Bill Bradley. Let's see, he was a politician afterward, but we're focused on his basketball career. He played for the Knicks, 2-time champion, 1-time All-Star. That doesn't really stand out. Looks like he was a college star, but NBA, probably Hall of Good, but wouldn't stand the test of today's time. So I'm going to have to say by today's standards, it seems like Hall of Good, but not Hall of Fame. He probably wasn't the best player on those Knicks teams either. So I have to say no on that. Dave DeBusschere, hell of a name. Played for the Pistons and the Knicks. 2-time champion, 8-time All-Star, 6-time All-NBA defensive team, All-NBA rookie, 50th and 75th anniversary teams. That seems more worthy of a Hall of Famer right there. That's right there. So I'll have to say yes on that one. It looks like, just from the numbers alone, one of the best of his era. And I got to compare players. To be fair, you got to compare them by what they did in their era, not necessarily by what you got. Jack Twyman, 6-time All-Star, for the Cincinnati Royals, now Sacramento Kings. Two-time All-NBA second team, and his jersey retired by the Kings. All right, that seems more reasonable. One of the better players of his era, which that's the standard here. And you go ahead, you got John Havlicek. Yep, he was one of, again, one of the better players of his era. I'll say yes on that one. Sam Jones. Let's see. Sam Jones. Let's see who. Sam Jones was on the, who was he? Played with the Celtics. All right, he was a 10, he was 5-time All-Star. He was one of the lead players around Bill Russell, I can tell by the 10 championships. So that makes sense. Fair enough. One of the top players of his era. And you notice, but don't worry, as we get closer toward the modern era, I won't have to really research these guys. I'll know as we get closer. And let's see, we got Coach Gardner, 4-time NCAA regional. All right, I'm noticing a trend with a lot of these coaches were college basketball coaches who went in. But to be fair, you got to remember, it wasn't until the Bird Johnson that the professional popularity boom started. So to be fair, before then, college was more popular. So I'm starting to notice that trend now. So, and you got Kirk signing with the Raiders. I know, right? I mean, if he's there to be a backup for Fernando Mendoza, okay, fair enough. That's not a bad signing at all. And then you get 85. You got Nate Thurmond. I'm kind of familiar with the name. Need some more info on him. Nate Thurmond, because I know that name. Let's see who he is. See, he played for the Warriors back in the 60s into the 70s, and then for the Bulls, and then for the Cavs. He played from 63 to 77, 7-time All-Star, 2-time All-Defensive, 3-time defensive team. All right, yep, that makes sense. One of the better players of his era. So, yeah, you got all these different codes. Let's see, who was Al Servey? That's the first time I've ever heard that name. So, like I said, once we get past it, it looks like he played in the NBL. I don't know. That's kind of hard to say because you're talking about an entirely different league where, honestly, I just know the NBL by name. The National Basketball League, wasn't really that familiar with that era. So it's like, I mean, comparing them to today's players is like an apples and oranges comparison. But then you get 86. You got Tom Hinson. I know Billy Cunningham by name. Red Holzman. I'm just going to do a quick search on this guy, see what. Oh, he did coach in the professional he played and then was a coach, a 2-time champion as a coach. Coach of the year 70s, one of the best coaches of the early 70s. All right. But here's the thing. You got Tom Heinsohn. Let me try that again. Tom Heinsohn. Let's see what he does up to. Okay, he played for the Celtics from 56 to 65, 6-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year. But the thing I'm starting to wonder, because I'm noticing a lot of these guys that were getting inducted were guys that played with Bill Russell during that run. I got to start wondering, were a lot of these guys just getting credit for the team success? Were they getting all-star nods because they played for the dominant team? Like, I mean, these are questions. I mean, these are questions you got to start wondering over time. Like, were they sometimes being overrated, some of those players, and getting more credit just because of it. And then you got Billy Cunningham, former Sixer. And during this time, he was an NBA champion, 4-time All-Star, one of the better players of his era, one of the original pioneers of the Sixers. So I see why he got inducted. And then he was a coach too later. So and then get there. Then you get 87. You got Walt Frazier. Yes. Pistol Pete Maravich. Yep. Rick Barry, I'm going to have to see a little bit more about him. We're starting to get a little bit closer to 90. So I'm going to start. I'll be able to breeze through these without checking out, see who these players are. You got Rick Barry during his career, 8-time All-Star, ABA champion, and NBA champion. So between the two leagues, I could see that, long career. He was the NBA steals leader in 75, scoring champ 67, rookie of the year 66. 4-time ABA All-Star. Oh, this definitely a Hall of Famer between the span of NBA and ABA. He dominated both leagues. Oh, definitely a Hall of Famer there. Rick Barry for sure. Like I said, Pistol Pete, Walt Clyde Frazier, yes. Pistol Pete was the original star of the Jazz before Malone and Stockton came along in terms of face of the franchise. So, see, Bob Wanzer, 5-time All-Star, NBA champion from 47 to 57. Okay, that's, I get it. He's, that's more of a quality over quantity thing, was one of the better players of his era. That one makes some sense. But even then, it's kind of hard to judge with some of these guys, because you could have guys that got multiple All-Star nods that are in the Hall very good. Which you'll start to notice that trend as we get a little bit closer to the modern times. I'll have a few guys that, spoiler alert, not going to say the names yet, but are in the Hall very good, but maybe not the Hall of Fame. Then the last one, Bob Hooper. See, he played Milwaukee, Baltimore Bullets, now Washington Wizards, the Celtics. And he was mostly a college star from what I'm seeing here. If that's the case, then I'm going to have to say none of that. Now we get to 1988. Wes Unseld, one of the star players for the Bullets, now Wizards. I'm going to have to say yes on that one. He was was a good player for that time. Bob McDermott, a little bit familiar with that name. We'll skip ahead. Lenny Wilkins, who recently passed away. Yep, he helped lead the Sonics. And he also won a career championship as a coach. So, to go there. Casey Jones. I'll go yes on Casey Jones. He was a really good, say, Robin behind Bill Russell. And one of the guys whose contributions alongside Russell on those Celtics championship teams still hold up to this day. So that's another reason I'm going to go with yes on him. Because a lot of these guys that were Hall of Famers, they don't hold up as well. So, and that's the thing, a lot of these Hall of Famers in the early years. You got to go by what they did with their era, which by today's era, some of it kind of looks, it's like at today's era, you wonder, who is this guy? How did this guy get in the Hall of Fame? But you got to remember, these guys, let's see, Bobby McDermott, let's see what he did. Bobby McDermott, he was an ABL champion, 3-time NBL. He played in the 30s and 40s, so it looks like from what I see, he was one of the better players of his era, and I got to judge by that. 6-time first team, 5-time most valuable player in the 40s. So, based on that, I'd consider Bobby McDermott a Hall of Famer because, I got to see, Let's see who Clyde Lovelett is. See, 3-time champion, 2 in the 60s, 4-time All-Star, late 50s, early 60s, honored by the Lakers. He was Clyde Lovelett, I guess one of the better players of that era. Like I said, Wes Unseld. Lenny Wilkins, kind of interesting. 1989. by today's standards, Lenny Wilkens is more kind of the Hall of very good. Like I said, Casey Jones, yes, he's one of the few players that people actually talk about playing alongside Bill Russell on those teams, not just played along for the ride. Pop Gates, NBL all-time. Nah, he was more so just a product of his era, an entirely different era of basketball. Doesn't really hold up by today's era. The 90s, Earl Monroe. I ranked him as one of the best Knick players of all time. I'll have to say yes to him, but more of a closer nod. He was a key contributor in those teams alongside Walt Clyde Frazier, a good number 2 player. So I'll have to say yes to him. Then you got Dave Bing. Let's see. During his NBA career in the 60s, 70s, 7-time All-Star, 2-time All-First Team, a NBA Rookie of the Year, a scoring champion. He was one of the better players of his era. So I'll say he did a yes to Dave Bing. He did enough to get the nod. Elvin Hayes, I would say yes because he goes back to the Wizards' peak years as the Baltimore Bullets. Nah, I haven't gone to any Hall of Fames. I've only seen Hall of Fame ceremonies on TV, so. And then Elvin Hayes, I even once ranked Elvin Hayes the greatest Wizard/Bolt of all time, so I stand by that saying yes, and he actually did help lead them to a championship. I know, crazy to put Wizards and championship in the same sentence, because the majority of us have never even seen anything close to that in our lifetimes. Then you got Neil Johnson. He was with the Philadelphia Warriors before they moved to Golden State. NBA champion 56 with them. He was NBA champion with them before they relocated, probably alongside Wilt Chamberlain, 6-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA team. I mean, he looks like he was really good early in his career. Then in the later years, he kind of took a bit of a backseat. Maybe it comes across as Hall of very good. Like maybe if he had continued that hot streak early in his career a few more years, but he comes across from what I see as a Hall of very good. 91, you got Tiny Archibald. Bob Knight. Yeah, Bob Knight, I would say yes to. Yeah, Dave Cowens. Dave Cowens, let's see. Dave Cowens played, when did he play? He played for the Celtics and the Bucks. Okay, he played from 1970 to 1983. 2-time champion with the Celtics. 8-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA second team, All-Star Game MVP, a Rookie of the Year. Yeah, this seems reasonable enough. And his All-Star nod stretched throughout his career. He played from 1970 to 83. He stretched out 8 All-Star nods throughout his career. So it looks like he was one of the better players consistently throughout his career. So in that regard, yes, I'll say yes to a Hall of Famer there. A Tiny Archibald. It's like he was from the Kings back. Oh, and was it probably the 60s into the 70s? He played for the Kings back when they were the Cincinnati Royals, the Nets for the New York Nets, where they became New Jersey, then the Brooklyn Nets, the Celtics, and the Bucks. He played from 76 to 84. He 6-time All-Star, stretched throughout his career as a champion in 81 with the Celtics. To be fair, yeah, he looks like one. Okay, I could cut. All right, I think kind of. He looks like it on paper. It looks like a Hall of Fame resume. So, will we say anything there? Let's see, Harry Galentine. This is going to be the last player of this era. Harry Galentine. Let's see. He played Gary Galentine played, what was it, in the 40s into the 50s, seven-time All-Star. I mean, so far, I mean, coach of the year in 63 as the coach for the St. Louis, now Atlanta Hawks. All right, that makes sense. Fair enough, one of the best of his era. Bob Lanier, you got 92. One of the better players. Let's see, who's Sergei Belov. Sergei Belov. That's an interesting name. Because we didn't really get a lot of. Okay, so he was a EuroLeague star. So 11-time USSR League champion. So he's an international legend. So if you want to go globally in terms of globalizing the game, I guess that makes sense in that regard. But I can't really judge because comparing the EuroLeague in his era to America with the NBA, it's like an apples and oranges comparison. See, Nero White played women's. That's kind of an apples to oranges. It's really hard to say some of these because a lot of these guys with the best thing is I'm noticing Basketball Hall of Fame because it's with like football, it's Pro Football Hall of Fame and can't. It's mainly reserved for NFL guys like the Basketball Hall of Fame. They bounce around between college, Euro, which that's what makes the Basketball Hall of Fame kind of tricky. Because then it's hard to tell with some of these people. You're basically talking about like Sergei Belov, a guy who played in EuroLeague and played in the Russian League. How many of us over here in the U.S. are actually familiar with that league? Like, realistically, probably none of us are familiar with it. We might know a handful of players at best, especially from like the 20th century before the influx of European players playing in the NBA. We don't really know much about EuroLeague, and even now. So it's like those are apples to oranges comparisons to me. And then you go 1993. Dr. J. Julius Erving, definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. Bill Walton, he had a really good peak while he was short with the Trailblazers, but I kind of judge Hall of Fame by like the NFL criteria. While Bill Walton was a big name and he's a beloved figure and God rest his soul, to me, Walton's playing career, he's more in the Hall of Very Good. Portland Trailblazers legend, but his peak was cut short due to his knee injuries. And to be fair, he was a contributing factor for those Celtics in 86 and won Sixth Man of the Year during the regular season. But to me, Bill Walton as a player is in the Hall of Very Good. To me, not really the Hall of Fame. And then you got Calvin Murphy. I know that name. He played with the Rockets. When they started in San Diego and transitioned to Houston. He's a one-time All-Star. All-NBA rookie team. I'm sorry, but I don't know. Calvin Murphy, a Hall of Famer? I mean, maybe if he was a huge star in college, I get that, but I'm sorry. Nah, I'm not really that sold on him. This is where the Hall of Fame kind of loses its credentials. You get guys that fall into the pretty good tier or the popular tier and then get inducted in the Hall of Fame. I'm like, ugh. I mean, Ann Myers, like some of those other players that played in foreign leagues, I don't necessarily have a problem with them getting inducted, but in terms of judging them, this is where it obviously gets tricky, like I said, because again, it's an apples to oranges comparison. Comparing women's leagues or Euro leagues to the NBA, you're talking about different leagues that have different rules, different standards that judge who the best players are. Like you'll have in one league, the top scorer, average score for points per game in the season is going to be higher or lower than the other league. So that's really, it's just, yeah, that's why it's like, that's the only thing with it. I mean, now if you want to do your research if you work on the Hall of Fame, you want to do your research and compare who the best players were. Now, even in the case of the Sergei Beluov, he had a lot of awards in the EuroLeague. I get that, fair enough. So, but it's like it's weird though too. I think that's why the Football Hall of Fame is also more popular too, because a lot of people, like, people know who the guys getting inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame are. With basketball, when you're starting to induct European coaches or women's players or coaches, with all due respect, a lot of fans that follow the Basketball Hall of Fame aren't that familiar with them. So it takes some of the appeal away. For a lot of fans, they're looking at the inductees going, who's this person? Who's this person? It's like, we're not saying that they were bad players or they weren't good in their respective leagues. Some of them, I'm sure, were great in their respective leagues. Some of these Europeans that got inducted for balling out in the Euro League, oh yeah, I'm sure they were great, but it's kind of hard. It's like, so that's a thing too. I'm like, you're also starting to do this exercise. It exposes that, yeah, a lot of these guys weren't. Let's see, Dick McGuire was a 7-time All-Star throughout the 50s, NBA assist leader, jersey retired by the Knicks. Like, that makes sense, one of the better players of his era. Okay, that makes sense. Let's see. Walt Bellamy. You got Walt Bellamy. Looks like he played with the Hawks back when they were. Oh, he played for a lot of teams. He played for the Bullets / Wizards, the Knicks, the Pistons, Hawks, and Jazz. 4-time All-Star. Looks like that all came in the earlier portion of his career. NBA Rookie of the Year. By today's standards, he looks like he was in the Hall of Good. So I'm just going to have to say Walt Bellamy. He seems like a Hall of Good, but not Hall of Great. Like Dick McGuire, researching him, he seems much more, he fits more of the qualifications to me for a Hall of Famer. Then ISO, let's see. Played Kentucky and Denver. 6-time ABA All-Star, ABA champion, ABA Rookie of the Year, ABA scoring champion. Okay, so if we're going off his contributions for the ABA, looks like he was one of the best in that league. So in that regards, again, mind you that we're open to, professional bet and even college hoops. Yes, in that regard, for what he did amongst the ABA, yeah. Now, here's another guy I can just tell by the name he's going to be. Yep, he played in the Soviet League back when it was Soviet Russia. Yeah, see, he won a bunch of championships over in Europe in the Euro League, I can tell. Italy, Hungary, Yugoslavia, which is now like Croatia, Slovenia, Montenegro. What else? Who was Serbia? Guys like Jokic, Luka would have came. If Yugoslavia was still a country now, basically, Team Yugoslavia would have been those guys like the Jokic's, Ivanka Zubac, Vucevic, Doncic, and all those guys. But based off his history, yeah, he looked like he was one of the best overseas. So in that regard, yes, Hall of Famer. And Myers, I didn't really get a whole lot of info. But to be fair, though, women's basketball wasn't even popular at the time, really. So I can't really judge what. You got Chuck Daly. I know the name Chuck Daly is a coach. Let me just check his resume. He probably is, most likely. Let's see. As a head coach, he was a 2-time champion. He was the coach of the Bad Boy Pistons. And yeah, he died here. Let's see. He's with the Bad Boy Pistons, with the Nets, then the Magic for a few years. Now, to be fair, he was the bad boy. He built that Pistons team up. He was there through Isaiah Thomas's peak, Bill Laimbeer, and all those guys. He coached them the entire time. So, say Chuck Daly, certain standpoint, yes. And then he had the Nets in the mid-'90s after the Pistons decided to blow it up. And the Nets were okay in the '90s. And then he was with the Magic for a few years post Shaq when they were still in the playoff mix. So I could say yes, I got to give Chuck Daly credit. He worked with what he had. I mean, you got Denny Crum as a coach, as he two-time division coach. So he's mostly a college coach. Let's see. 6-time NCAA Division Final Four, 3-time MVC regular season, 12-time Metro regular season, 11-time Metro tournament. Okay, one of the best coaches within his space as a coach at Louisville, compiling 675 wins. Cardinals the 2 NCAA championships. Yeah, in that regard, yeah, one of the best college coaches of all time. Absolutely. Then you got Carol Blaze Jaworski. Kind of like Jaworski instead of Jaworski. For those of you that are Eagles fans familiar with Ron Jaworski, this guy was, he played, Carol. Now she played, Carol. She was also a GM for the New York Liberty as a player, WBL scoring leader, athlete of the year. It's tough to judge because I'm not that familiar with the WBL at all. So I don't know what the standards for great players in that league were. So kind of I'm kind of it. I don't know, man. I can't really judge. I'd be coming from a glass half full. You got Buddy Giannetti from. He played BAA. I don't even know what the BAA is. It was a 3-time NBL champion, BAA champion. Let's see what this is. Oh, was this the previous name before? Like I said, so the NBL, he was a 3-time NBL champion, 3-peat, 4-time NBL first team, World Professional Basketball Tournament champion. Okay, so he's a guy from product of the 40s and 50s who dominated basically all the different leagues he played for. So in that retrospect, I can consider Buddy a Hall of Famer because he was a good product of the 40s and 50s who went from league to league. This was obvious before the NBA became huge and popular. Back then, 40s, 50s, players traveled from league to league where they weren't making as much money. They had to find ways to produce income year-round. And so I'm starting to also learn a lot about the history of basketball from years before we know now. So, and I've learned that standards for best basketball players, 40s, 50s, 60s, way different than today's standards. So there's another good thing about this, learning more about the history of basketball and how it's evolved and changed over the course from the 20th century to the 21st century, with a lot of the changes we see now coming late 20th. But moving on, let's see. Cesare Rubini, he's an Italian player, so 6-time Italian League champion, Euro League champion, 2-time FIBA Supporter Cup champion. Okay. Yeah, so this is going based off what he did overseas. Has a resume of a dominant overseas player. And since this is, Basketball Hall of Fame extends internationally, okay, that makes sense. Fair enough. 95, we know Kareem Abdul-Jabbar he's in the discussion for all-time GOAT, for the GOAT, for NBA GOAT. So in that regard, yeah, absolutely. He was for the longest time the all-time lead scorer. And then you got him there. You got Cheryl Miller. I know Cheryl Miller was one of the best original, Cheryl Miller, she was one of the best women's players. She was a star at college at USC. I know the name. I'm a little bit familiar, so this is going off what she did mainly over there. And she has the resume of one of the best. She has a great resume as one of the best college players. And she did win Olympic gold medal in the 84 Summer Olympics with the women's team USA. So if we're going based off that, mind you, this was before the WNBA was even a thing, before there was even a lucrative option professionally. So in that regard, yes, because this was shortly before. Yeah, remember though, this was also a product of a time. And you got Ann Donovan was a coach, I believe. Yeah, she's a coach. She was a coach in the WNBA and was a college, great college player. She won a couple gold medals for Team USA's women's and coached a gold medal in the 2008 Beijing. Coached 2 golds in the FIBA games, 98 and 2002. So Ann Donovan she certainly has the coaching resume of a Hall of Famer competing on a global scale, so fair enough. Obviously, Alexander Golmiski, that's obviously going to need to do some research. That's an overseas one. Let's see, so obviously a Russian former player of coach, obvious 4-time EuroLeague champion as a coach, 12-time Soviet League champion, one of the 50 greatest EuroLeague contributors. Okay, so this is one of the great names in the EuroLeague space, so that makes sense because remember, the Basketball Hall of Fame is global too. So, but also one of the good things about that is that now with the Basketball Hall of Fame being global, you get to people get to know who some of these people for us in the States. We know now who some of these names were overseas, like having someone like a John Cunliffe, having all these guys that played in the NBL that dominated there in the Hall of Fame. Now I know what it is. I didn't even know what this was. You have an NBL champion, NBA champion as a player, but 4-time All-Star Game head coach. So yeah, as a coach, oh yeah, absolutely Hall of Fame resume. Even if this was during an entirely different era, hey, this is someone who consistently won and dominated. So a lot of these make sense. Then you get moving on. You got George Gervin, the Iceman, one of those early best players to never win a championship. One of the dominant players of the 70s into the 80s. Then you got, Alex English, the original, the OG of Denver Nuggets star players that helped put them on the map, helped them reach a conference finals. Alex English was another good one. Then you got David Thompson. A little bit familiar with David Thompson. David Thompson, 4-time NBA All-Star, All-Star Game MVP, ABA Rookie of the Year, All-ABA Second Team, NCAA Champion. That's a lot on his resume. But I'm kind of getting short on time here, so I might have to. Maybe we might have to come back to this subject, but I'll have to try to breeze through this. We'll go. So here's what I'll probably do, because I'm kind of getting short on time now, so sorry for that, guys. So what I'll do is I'll go through a lot of the players that I know, vote yes or no on them, and then come back to a lot of these players I'm not familiar with, do some more research on them for next time. So we're going to close it out doing that. So I'll make a note that there's going to be a part 2 to this series, and we'll do a part 2 maybe another time. And that during that part 2, I can do some more research on some of these players I'm not familiar with, or some of these European coaches. So that's in the works. So I'm taking a note, part 2, B-Ball Hall of Fame. Continue 1997. And I put in quotation, research needed. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to close this out. We're short on time, but I'm going to kind of skim through the ones that I know. We'll get those out the way. So we'll do that right there in just a second. Let's see. So we're going to go through the ones we mostly know. Obviously, Larry Bird. Yeah, we know that. Easy Hall of Famer, multi-time MVP, multi-time champion. Considered by a lot to be the greatest basketball, by the greatest Boston Celtic, idolized by Celtic fans. Oh, yeah, definitely a Hall of Famer. Larry Bird. Lenny Wilkens is a coach. He did have a few good years with the Supersonics. I don't know. But yeah, Lenny Wilkens, he's more remembered as a coach than a player, so I'd say more so yes there. And then you got Kevin McHale. He was from those teams as well. McHale, I'll say yes to, was a really good Robin, so to say. Then you got Isaiah Thomas. Definitely. He's the only guy who, as the leader of a team, could consistently beat the Jordan-led Chicago Bulls. For the bad boy Pistons, Isaiah Thomas led them to 3 best-of-7 series wins over the Chicago Bulls before the Bulls finally caught up to them in the 91 playoffs. And Thomas won 2 finals and 3 straight finals appearances. And that first one was even a questionable win for the Lakers when they lost in the 88 finals. But Isaiah Thomas, man, was one of the best players of all time. Best guards of all time. He dominated for the time that he played. So absolutely. Pat Summitt, one of the best coaches. I'd have to say yes. You got Bob McAdoo. It's a really good player. He was even on my Lakers best of all time. But then again, I don't know. McAdoo kind of tease on the cusp of it. 2001, Coach K, absolutely 100%. The most winningest college basketball coach of all time. John Chaney from Temple. Yeah, for consistency throughout the years, I'd say yes. Moses Malone, it's really good, dominated for the time he played. Drazen Petrovic is, NBA-wise, is a what could have been. NBA-wise was good, but remember, Petrovic did play pro overseas too before going down there. So maybe I'll come back to that and get a look at Petrovic's overseas career and put the entire resume together. Magic Johnson, absolutely. Larry Brown as a coach, yes. The Globetrotters, look, I get that they're a popular act, but the Harlem Globetrotters are basically like the pro wrestling of basketball, where we all know the Globetrotters is a show. Not saying that as an insult, but the Harlem Globetrotters are a show. I feel, to me, that's a slap in the face to players that actually competed for real that could have gotten a spot. I mean, I get the Globetrotters are popular. They're still a draw, and, they're entertaining amongst its demographic, but we all know it's just a show. I feel like that's a bit of a slap in the face to some of the players that actually competed, that this Harlem Globetrotters team that was all for shows get inducted. Nothing against them, but I don't know. That to me is kind of a slap in the face. Magic Johnson, absolutely. Robert Parrish, I'll have to say, kind of on the cusp right there. Wasn't the number 1 guy. Maybe the Hall of Good. Kind of iffy about Hall of Fame, but don't get me wrong. He was a really good player, but probably more so Hall very good. James Worthy, I would say yes, because he helped keep the Lakers relevant even after Kareem retired and helped keep them in the mix alongside Magic. So James Worthy, I'll go yes. Clyde Drexler, absolutely. That was a dude that dominated his basketball career for most of his career, even well into his days with the Houston Rockets. He was a really good number 2 player and still made a couple All-Star nods alongside Hakeem, along with dominating with the Blazers. So he made 4 finals in his career, countless All-Star nods, absolutely Hall of Famer. And like I said, for a lot of these coaches that I have to do research on, we'll definitely come back to them. You got Charles Barkley, yes. Hands down, one of the best players to ever win a championship. Also a larger-than-life personality. He was known for his commercial encouraging parents be a role model so I don't have to be the role model, trying to say that parents should be the role models around the house, not the athletes. Now, I get the message that Charles Barkley was trying to put out there, but it isn't necessarily true because athletes are still role models in their own right, even though Charles Barkley, I get his point of no, it should be the parents. I get what he was trying to put out there, and it's still an ad that resonates to this day as well. So, and that helped put him on the map as a larger than life star that people paid to go to their games. When he went to the Phoenix Suns, they all of a sudden became instantly relevant. And on top of being a former regular season MVP, multi-time All-Star, one of the best of his position, it's also a large than life figure. So absolutely, yes. Joe Dumars, I'll have to say, yes, he was a key contributor to that bad boy Pistons team. Him and Zeke were one of the best backcourts in NBA history. Zeke referring to Isaiah Thomas. Dominique Wilkins, yes, he helped put the Atlanta Hawks on the map during the NBA's initial boom in popularity during the Bird Johnson era. And he was the face of the franchise during that, so I'll have to say yes to that. 2007, Phil Jackson as a coach. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of these other guys, I got to check them on. 2008, Adrian Dantley, yes. He was a really good player, both for the Jazz and then a contributor as a role player for the Bad Boy Pistons. He helped pave the way for Stockton and Malone to take over when he got traded to the Pistons, and he was still a really good role player there. So for his overall body of work as a player, yes. Got Patrick Ewing, absolutely as a player, one of the best of all time. Hakeem Olajuwon, definitely. Pat Riley as a coach, absolutely. Dick Vitale as a contributor, yes. He's one of the most known names. He played a key role in marketing, particularly marketing March Madness. And he's still a contributor on commercials to this day. So Dick Vitale, absolutely, as a contributor. Then you got 2009. Oh, yeah. Players-wise, slam dunk, slam dunk, slam dunk in terms of being Hall of Famers. Jordan, Robinson, Stockton all have this in common. They all started during the Bird Johnson era and all respectively retired in the 2003 offseason. Robinson went out with a ring in San Antonio. Stockton had a long career. He was the all-time steals leader. He never missed the playoffs as long as he was a player. Now, granted, I did say that Stockton's one of the biggest playoff underachievers, and I stand by that. But to be a part of a team that makes the playoffs 19 straight seasons, that's incredible. And he's part of one of the best NBA duo that never won a championship, being him and Karl Malone. Oh, absolutely, for sure. And David Robinson, the Admiral, dominated the regular season consistently. He did win 2 championships, and he was a good number 2 when Duncan took over as the number 1 there in San Antonio. And Robinson played a key contributor in making sure that team was set to continue winning when he did step down in 2003. Because he helped take Tim Duncan under his wing, who then in turn passed that knowledge along to Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and that kept the Spurs dynasty rolling even after he retired. So, and not only was he a great player, he was a great leader in making sure that Spurs team was set to succeed for years to come after he retired. And of course, Michael Jordan, the name that's the face of the biggest name, the biggest money draw, cash cow in basketball history, especially NBA history. Obviously, first ballot Hall of Famer, 6 championship rings. The Jordan brand helped revolutionize marketing aspect of basketball. Absolutely no questions asked. Next, the 2 gold medal teams. I mean, with all due respect, if you're going to start inducting gold medal teams, though, too, you're pretty much going to induct them all. Dennis Johnson as a player, I'm kind of iffy on. Karl Malone as a player alone, yes. Scottie Pippen, yes. Easily the greatest Robin, but even as a Robin, Scottie still had to do his part in making sure he was a valuable number 2, which he did. and I always say this with Scotty and Jordan, that was a codependent relationship. Scotty did need MJ, and vice versa. MJ needed that perfect number 2 in Scotty. So that to me was a codependent relationship. Gus Johnson, kind of iffy about. Artis Gilmore, a solid player. Dennis Rodman, great personality, revolutionary figure, but as far as on the court goes, Dennis Rodman, though, he was a good player, but in terms of like championship runs, he always was better as like a number 3 or 4 guy. With the bad boy Pistons, you still had, it was Isaiah and Joe Dumars were the main 2 guys in that team. With the Bulls, he was the number 3 guy. So look, Rodman was a great rebounder, and he could do that dirty work. But to me, Dennis Rodman at best was Hall of Very good as a player. To me. Ardeas Sabonis, he mostly played his career overseas. I'll have to do some more research on his overseas career to see if he's really worthy in my part 2 of this. 2012, you got Mel Daniels. Yep, I would put him in. You got, who else that I'm familiar with? Reggie Miller, absolutely. Ralph Sampson, to me, Ralph Sampson's Hall of Very good, but I think if he would have just had a few more dominant years, then maybe I'd consider him a Hall of Famer. But to me, Hall of Very good. 2013, Gary Payton, I'll say yes, because he was really good, and he was vital in turning that Supersonics team into contenders. Bernard King, I'm more along the Hall of Very good line with him. Dawn Staley, I'd say Dawn Staley is a coach in South Carolina, absolutely. As far as players go, see, Alonzo Mourning, yes. Mitch Richmond, I'm kind of more along the Hall of Very good for Richmond. 2015, Coach Calipari, I kind of get it, but he's kind of like the Doc Rivers of college coaching, where he's had plenty of chances and underachieved. So I'll kind of put it that way. He's won a lot for longevity purposes and having the right talent, similar to Doc Rivers in the NBA. So I get why, but I think he's an overrated Hall of Famer. Dikembe Mutombo, I'll say yes to. One of the greatest defensive players of all time and one of the most influential figures. 2016, Allen Iverson, yep. Shaquille O'Neal, definitely. Yao Ming, when he was on the court, he dominated. I don't know, but to me, the injuries, kind of 50-50 on Yao, though, whether he's a Hall of Famer. Tracy McGrady, T-Mac's in the Hall of Very good to me. I'm not sure about the Hall of Famer. For a lot of these people that I'm not as familiar with, I'll have to come back and, like I said, do a part 2 where I do research on them. So I'm mostly just closing out with the ones I know. Dino Raja, nah, I'm sorry. I'm just not. Grant Hill, again, one of those Hall of Very Goods. To me, Mo Cheeks, kind of iffy again. Steve Nash, I'll say more so, yeah, borderline. Jason Kidd, yes, absolutely. See, then you go ahead. You got Vlade Divac. To me, Hall of Very Good, but not a Hall of Famer. Sidney Moncrief was kind of, you could maybe make a case for him. He was one really good player for the Bucks. Kind of a forgotten name. And then you got 2020, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett. Slam dunk, yes, 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 for those 3 guys being in the Hall of Fame. Some of these other guys I got to go do my research on. Let's see. 2021, Chris Bosh, I'll say yes to, because he helped make the Raptors relevant throughout the late 2000s and the early 2010s. And even as the number 3 guy, he was a huge contributor to that team making it to 4 straight finals. I'll have to say yes there. Paul Pierce, yes. Long career, one of the toughest players to ever play it. Bill Russell as a coach, yes, because he managed the player-coach responsibilities perfectly. Ben Wallace, I'll go Hall of Good, but very good, but not quite Hall of Fame. Tony Kukoc, Hall of Good, but no, Hall of Fame, not really. Chris Webber, he has a more valid case. He's kind of on the cusp to me. I get why, though. I'd say he has a stronger case than Ben Wallace and Tony Kukoc, but it's so more borderline. Manu Ginobili, I feel like Hall very good. Tim Hardaway Sr., kind of the same, more of a Hall very good. Let's see, this one, 2023, Dwayne Wade, absolutely. Dirk Nowitzki, absolutely. Popovich as a coach, definitely. His playing career, I'll have to do some more research on. Pau Gasol, maybe off his Lakers run, yes, but mostly off the backs of his Lakers run because those were his best years, but kind of more of a borderline to me. Tony Parker, I'd say over time, yes, but more of a borderline. Becky Hammon, I understand based off what she did in the women's basketball world, yeah. Vince Carter, yes, because not only was he an all-star, but he was a star that drew people to the arena. Chauncey Billups, more Hall of very good to me. Jerry West as an executive, oh yeah, absolutely. He helped lead the Lakers by making the Kobe trade, bringing in Shaq, helped turn the Grizzlies into a relevant franchise throughout the 2000s, early 2010s, and played a key role in the Warriors in the early years when they were building up to their dynasty. So I'd say yes. Sue Bird as a player, I've looked at her resume. I'll say yes to that based off what she did compared to their WNBAs. Carmelo Anthony, yeah, I'd say he did enough. Dwight Howard, yes, because he was one of the best. He was a dominant center. Even in a weaker era amongst centers, he still dominated during his peak. And he won, what was it, like 4 something? He won numerous Defensive Player of the Year awards, multi-time All-Star, even led a run to the finals. So I'll say yes on that. And for a lot of these players, I'll have to do this into a part 2 where I'll have to research some of the Europeans and the women I'm not familiar with and kind of see, okay, were they really good or dominant amongst their respective leagues? So I'll come back to this later. So Grega, anyone else that stopped by, thanks for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a great rest of your day. Until next time, it's your boy Nicky Stees signing off.